fast nesters. It was only a month ago that we were singing the praises, as was the entire AFL world, of our West Coast Eagles. And 4 weeks later, 4 heavy defeats, 2 of them by more than 100 points. The one on the weekend against the Saints, obviously the most embarrassing of them all, considering the opposition and the way in which the first half has gone or went. And we are right back from where we were at the start of the season with optimism all but dissipated, Drew Jones. It's turned pretty quickly, and there's a lot of questions to ask about what's going on right now, albeit with the youngest team in the league, as we know, and a rebuilding side.
Really frustrating, Garby. Felt like we'd sort of got a bit of trust back in the early part of the season, that we could turn up and know we were going to see a team that was competitive, that would give effort, that had competent AFL qualities. But, that slipped a little bit in recent times. And I made a conservative decision to have some more father-son time and give my partner a chop out on Sunday and just have the game on the TV and not go to Marvel, because I was a little concerned. And those concerns were proved to be correct, unfortunately. And the stats are stark. I don't know if you've seen this pop up over the last sort of 24, 48 hours. So I think this was via Paddy Sweeney. Since 2022, we've lost by over 100 points 9 times. And the rest of the entire AFL combined, there have been 7 100-point losses, which is a disgusting and shameful record. And in our last 100 games, we have lost by more than 50 points 44 times.
So that's the point I want to get to here, and that we really need to knuckle down on. Because if you watch the first half of that game on the weekends, no one in their wildest dreams would have thought that it would blow out to a 100-point margin. I mean, it was slow going. It was defensive footy. We were chipping it around. They weren't penetrating us much. And it just blows your mind that it can blow out by that much. And then you start to ask questions about why. And fair enough when you look at that stat that you just mentioned. And that's the part that's concerning me. And it's the same for every Eagles fan. It's not that we lost, because I think most people thought, all right, it's going to be a bit of a tough ask. Saints are a solid side at home. Don't have a great record at Marvel. If we lost by 5 or 6 goals, okay. Against Freo, we were really competitive. Against the Cats, we were okay. Sydney we thought would be an aberration, but it hasn't proven to be that way. So that's what I want to get to right now is, I think, a question that's emerged, and it's not a label that we're throwing at it. It's not a flat-out call for any sort of change. It's not any sort of grandstand finalised statement. It is purely just a question, and I think it's a question that is fair. And that is, is the coach inspiring the team enough? Is there enough fear in the side right now? Because it seems as if they simply get in situations like this, Drewy, and accept it, and accept that it's getting out of hand, and oh well, that's just how it goes. And people will say, we were the youngest team in the league, and mention all the kids. We still had out there on the weekend Yo, Kelly, Baker, Duggan, Waterman. Hoff has played enough footy. Jinby's played enough footy. Harley Reid's now played enough footy in the middle. Tyler Young's not a kid. Tom McCarthy might not have played many games, but he's still a mature body. There was enough out there to sort of stand up a little bit more than we did. We had enough experience, even though we are still very young.
It sort of feels like losing doesn't have consequences at West Coast. Like it's just...
That's the point I'm getting to. I don't think there's enough fear instilled in the playing group.
It just looks to me like, and this is, I guess, what can happen to footy clubs who go through a traditional long-form rebuild, and we didn't fall into it. We plummeted into a crater of a rebuild, and it's like, well, losing is tolerated because we're not that good and we haven't been for a while, but we've got good young kids and that's great, and we'll probably get a couple more this year, and maybe the cavalry will arrive in a couple of years to save us. Like, that's what it kind of feels like. I didn't think we were hard and tough enough on Sunday. That was the sense that I got watching on telly. I thought
completely. From the start, before it blew out.
Yeah.
Before it blew out. That first quarter, I thought we were just really soft.
It was a problem the entire game. And then St Kilda, I reckon the Saints got a sniff. They were like, these blokes haven't turned up. to compete, and they rightly gave us an absolute shellacking, and it honestly could have been more if they kicked straight. They weren't as ruthless as they could have been in the first half. They kept us around, and Ross looked a bit frustrated when we kicked a couple of goals to sort of get ourselves almost back in the game, and maybe that kicked him into gear, but not tough enough, not hard enough. There wasn't anyone setting any sort of physical example, which is a shame because you'd think that someone like an Elliot Yeo or Hoff or Duggan could have done that. And the kids, yet again, like Dersma and Lindsay, probably had two best players on the day, which is, that should be a kick up the arse for everyone else who's rolling out. But yeah, like it's just a loserish situation. Like everyone's got that, seems to have that losing mentality. I would prefer that this doesn't get instilled into our young players. And I guess this just shows you why, ideally you would have, a good collection of senior players who are fit and who are quality, who can teach the young guys the right way to play and prop you up a little bit as you're going through this rebuild, because it's, at the moment, there's a severe lack of winning know-how.
Yeah, so it's been instilled culturally, I think. And when a new coach comes in, he has to change the culture when it's at a team that's struggling as much as we have been. And that is the question. I think it's a fair question. Does Andrew McWalter... I think Andrew McWalter knows the game superbly. I've no doubt about that. And we've seen enough signs over the last season and a bit, game plan-wise, to suggest that there is something set up there that has excellent foundations that the players believe in, the players the players think will bring them success. And the players seem to like Minnie and they're all on board. And I don't think there's any divide or anything like that. Nothing as sinister as that, not by any stretch. I think they're all together. But, it's that same question, does he have enough of that aura? He's all good at well and good at explaining to players how to do things and connecting with them. But you've got to have a little bit of fear. You've got to be in your mind just a bit, running out there thinking, oh, God, I don't want the coach to give me a bake here, or the coach is going to drop me here because of the way this is going. And they just seem to get into this whole, it'll be okay mentality. And some of the comments are, it's going to be a long, hard road. We know that. I don't want to hear that every week. I want to hear that this is not acceptable. I want to hear that, they've been read the riot act a bit. I want to see a bit of that. We just need to get a bit angrier. There needs to be a bit more of an antisocial vibe amongst the players, I think. It's a little bit too nice, a little bit too supportive. And when things are on our terms against some of the weaker teams, we can go out there and grab a win, and hopefully we do against Richmond. But I just think the whole place needs to get a little bit angry. And I'm not sure, and I think a lot of Eagles fans feel this, whether Andrew is the person who can deliver that. Doesn't mean he can't. Doesn't mean he won't bring success. But it's a valid question at this stage, I think, that he needs to answer, and hopefully he will.
To be honest, the worst thing for Andrew McWalter in the last 7 to 8 weeks has been Stephen King, because he's shown...
Correct.
Again...
Spot on.
Well, he was in the hiring process for West Coast, and then, unfortunately, he was unwell, and whether that was a massive factor in him not getting the job, I guess we'll never really know. But Stephen King has shown what a new coach can do for a footy club. And when you consider, what Melbourne tipped out the back door, they went into the season with very low expectations and have beaten the reigning premiers and really impressed. They've been awesome at home, set up a fortress, have an identity, make the best of your players, strengths and weaknesses, all that sort of stuff. And so, we look at McWalter and we say, well, we're not doing any of that. Like sometimes we're even not competitive. So, and then, on the aura piece, the same questions are being asked about Adam Uze. I think when you're losing and you've got a young side, and then perhaps you come across a certain way in the media. Maybe that's just that's just something that pops into our heads. I don't know. I think he has the chance to learn this on the job, because clearly he's going to be sitting back and saying, well, this is not acceptable. So maybe there's something I need to change. Maybe I need to be harder, or I need to do something differently. And he's got the ability to learn on the job as we are, but he's got to learn fast. Like, we can't be mucking around losing by 100 points to a team that came 13th last year. Like, that's not acceptable. And to be honest, these performances are way past acceptable. Like, this this is sort of delving back into the really bad times. And we should be far beyond that, far beyond.
Yeah. So as Craig McRae and Chris Fagan have proven, you can be the nice guy publicly and the fun uncle and still generate incredible performances from your playing group. You don't have to be the hard ass, right? And so no one's saying that he can't have success with his persona. And we don't know exactly what he's like all the time behind the scenes either. But at the same time, just because you have a group of excellent kids doesn't guarantee that the path is going to be linear and you're just going to make it to the top. They need to be inspired. They still need to be driven along with the rest of the playing group. And Hawthorn is the best example for us right now. You know, people forget very quickly that they were at the beginning of a rebuilding phase not long ago, or 2-3 seasons ago. And they accelerated that massively because Sam Mitchell is a brilliant coach. And you see the way in which he operates. I think Andrew McQualter knows the game like he does. But Mitchell has got that edge to him that is, it's fire and brimstone. And he has actually got his team to overachieve. You can also do that as a coach. There's nothing wrong with getting a team to overachieve. It doesn't have to be this path of this season we'll finish 15th and next season we'll finish 12th and then we'll make the 8. Like, you can actually jump up. And that's ultimately what we want. No one's demanding it right now. But it's just too much acceptance of, we will be good in 2-3 years and we have to accept these losses now and the road will be long and hard. Like, Eagles fans are over that. We've had too much of that for too long.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the same page here. We're on the same wavelength, and I think most West Coast fans are. I get the sense it's just a question of where on the spectrum you sit, but we're all pretty much in the same space. I mean, I saw Will Schofield put it on the players.
We can cop the losses. That's the thing. We can cop the losses. It's the heavy defeats that we're just not accepting anymore.
No, we can't have that. And I think when Scully says that it's on the players, of course they have to take responsibility. And we've talked about the fact that it seems or it feels not as competitive as it should be. And it feels like there's an acceptance and there's a willingness to roll over because maybe it just doesn't matter that much whether we get wins or not. Like if there's anyone in the club that genuinely feels that way, or if there is some attitude that has seeped in over the years, or there's this pervasive, subconscious feeling that because we're rebuilding, it doesn't matter. Like, it bloody does matter.
Yeah.
Like, hard-earned cash
Correct.
spent by fans turning up. We want to watch a competitive display. Like, I didn't renew my Victorian West Coast membership this year because I was like, why would I shell out $500 or whatever, it's probably $600 now, to turn up to guaranteed losses? Like, I'm happy to pay my $25 to get in with the general admission, but I'm not going to donate money to the club to watch losses and to be on the A list to get grand final tickets, because that ain't happening. And if any West Coast fan just is getting a bit fed up, then we hear you. Like, we understand. Like, it's just like the boys. They'd want to turn up this week and not only beat Richmond, but like play like you mean it. Because, like, say what you want about the Tigers, like I think the Tigers still they are absolutely ravaged with injury. I still think they turn up with a competitive edge to play footy.
They do most weeks. I mean, look at the heavy losses number. I mean, we're out on our own. They don't have 100-point losses. I mean, they get beaten by 60
lose by
points,
8. They lose
points,
by 8 to 10 goals. Yeah.
Yes, it doesn't blow out to that magnitude. So why is that happening for us? That's the key question. And we're not missing that many. Yes, Graham and Robertson are important. Edwards is as well. But like, every team's got injuries. We've still got enough out there to limit the defeats of that magnitude. And that's the other thing. I hope we come out breathing fire this week and knock off Richmond. We'll all be delighted. But then it can't just be, we beat Richmond, pats on the back, and then fall asleep the next week. Like, we're over that. Every week you kind of expected, okay, we're going to respond this week. And the week after, we might be a bit flat because we had a win last week. Like, come on. No one's saying you have to be at that level every week. We are a young team, but it can't be as predictable as it is right now. There's also some performances that are concerning us. Like, I don't get the Liam Baker deployment at the moment, like up forward.
I hate it.
Do you know that he did not have one tackle on the weekend? How in a game like that can Liam Baker, nothing against him personally, like he had a down game like so many others, he's been amazing for us. But clearly we're not using him in the right way if Liam Baker does not have one tackle in a 101-point loss.
Mate, it's the last position I'd play him in. Like, I'd rather have him in the ruck. He has to play either midfield or in the back line. Like, he wins one-on-one contests. He's a ground ball specialist. Like, I don't want to see him in the forward line. Like, it's a waste.
Doesn't make sense.
But we are, like, I recognise that we're in a tough spot for small forwards. But, like, this is not Baker's job. Like, I would, if it's a choice between having Owies in the team and Baker playing in the back line, I'll take that. I can't have Baker in the forward line.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Brady Hoff's form is just off. And we've sung his praises for several seasons, as we should have. He's been great. But what's gone on with him at the moment? He just seems... I feel like the preseason injury had an impact, and maybe it's lingering. But he just doesn't seem himself either. Like, Hoffy at his best plays with a bit of personality. Like, he's presenting and he's tackling and he's a little bit... he's not the most expressive character, but you just see a bit of the chest out, shoulders back from him, and he just seems to be a shadow of himself in that regard right now. It's been disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about him as being one of the better medium defenders in terms of being a stopper in the league. I don't think he's anywhere near that conversation at the moment, which is like severely hurting us. There's not that many that can really hold their head up. I thought that Dersma and Lindsay were good on the weekends, and I think, for the most part, the young players have shown a fair bit this season. But, yeah, it's the collective competitive drive outside of Milan Murdoch, who you can see it. You can see it on his face. You can see it in the way that he plays.
Yeah. Pressure
acts, tackles. He runs himself into the ground. He's not going to be the tidiest player of all time, but we're not seeing that. His personality right now has not permeated through the group. It's the opposite.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really disappointing. Dersma and Lindsay were great. I like the Dersma move on NASA. Fair play. He wanted to do it, and don't really have issue with that. Lindsay's looking fantastic. For Shanahan, we love King Job, obviously. We've spoken about him a lot. I felt early on there was a few contests with Wilkie, and Wilkie's fantastic. I mean, he's an all-Australian lock at this stage. I just thought Job didn't really compete. It's the first time I've looked and I've gone, okay, now, the little criticism that there's been on you, or question mark, sometimes about your ability to really compete on certain days when maybe you're not quite feeling it. I saw it against Wilkie where he got beaten in, I think, 4 aerial contests far too easily. And I think he's got to get that out of his game if he's going to be the absolute player that we know he can be.
I thought a few times, it's interesting that you say that. I also wondered, is this what it looks like? And then I also thought, this is like the first thing on the scouting report against St Kilda. Got to get the ball to ground. You cannot allow Wilkie to sag off and mark. And so we failed at the very first thing that would have been discussed at the team meeting. I mean, we're still in that phase where we're blind kicking too much out of congestion down the line, which is Wilkie's bread and butter, obviously. But the fact that there were times where Shanahan, Williams, Waterman, whoever, either weren't competing or they were getting run under the ball. It was just, that was a major failing. But I think in that situation, if I felt like if I would have been in the coaching box, I would have grabbed Shanahan, brought him off, had a yarn with him, and then just stuck him in the back line. I'd be like, sorry, mate, you've lost the right.
Yeah. But we don't know if that's happening. Maybe it is. But it would feel like one of those moments like, Job, come on, wake up a bit here. Yes, you're young and all that, but you've got to just try and bring this ball to ground. He got outmarked 4 times and it went straight back in. I mean, we love the kid. It's just a sign of there was just this mental drop-off amongst the group. And yeah, it was just, I think the key point there is it was way before it blew out. We saw it in that first quarter when the margin was still pretty low. So how did it get to that? I guess the benefit, Drewy, is that the waffle team's flying. And that's been the silver lining over the past few weeks. They've had 3 wins in a row, and there are players who are really starting to impress. Tommy Gross, brilliant. Really want to see him in the team to face Richmond this week. Finn McRae's pushing. I don't think we thought that would happen 2-3 weeks ago, but he's really pushing for a place, and wouldn't surprise me if he gets a spot on the wing against the Tigers as well. Ori's kicked 5. Flynn's playing well in the ruck, so that's going to be an interesting call this week. But there are so many. Tommy Cole's doing really well down back. Don't know why Bazzo hasn't been given a chance over Brock. That's still mystifying. But there are 6 or 7 players who are really sticking their hand up in a big way.
Yeah, so I think you have to bring Owies in this week. You reward the performance and also just get Baker out of that spot and get him back into the back line or through the midfield, whatever you want to do with him. And then, does Elijah Hewitt go out, or do you need to give him, he had a moment late in that Saints game. I think he got caught holding the ball, but he just showed a moment where he wanted to use that explosion away from stoppage, and it was almost there. I wonder if maybe he needs another week, but he hasn't had a huge amount of impact over the last couple. But you've got to find a spot for Gross, I think, to give him a crack. And it's almost it's almost meant to be because it's against Richmond. Could he have a moment that redeems himself after what happened? Yeah, the chase down tackle, and then interesting. Reed Bazzo, I'd probably be in favour of seeing him get a crack ahead of Brock. We've got to get him out there and give him a go. I don't think Brock is in any way locked down that spot. And then how do we fit McRae in? What's the move there if you want to play him on the wing?
Well, I wouldn't say, Hamish Davis has been solid, but Hamish Davis goes out and McRae comes in. I don't think anyone's going to sit there and raise their eyebrows. Davis has been fine. He works bloody hard, but that's a possibility. Or he plays on the other wing and Dersma goes into another position. I'm not sure if McRae's quite done enough, but I don't mind it, especially when I get a bit more experience into the side. Schonberg's had his chance, did okay. Maybe it's McRae's turn to get a go and show us what you can do. His ability to carry the ball and run hard could be handy for us. So I don't mind that. Does Tommy Cole come in? Do they drop off? It's got to be possible, right? It would be another big call. Cripple will be a chance to come back in as well. Considering his stature for a home game against Richmond, that's possible. I felt like the Saints game was the chance to rest CDT. And I just thought that was the opportunity. And then rest him up and then let him rip against Richmond. How good would that have been at home? Now he's getting to the stage now where you're like, oh, God, is he a bit fatigued? But then you don't want to rest him for a game that's so winnable. So it's probably the week after. But, there could be a good 5 or 6 changes for this game.
You could make a case for wholesale changes, really, because you could bring Dewar in and Cripps and Owies and just completely revamp the front half if you wanted to, which I wouldn't be against. You could slip Dersman a half back and play McRae and Davis on the 2 wings. Having Dersma's smooth moving abilities in that position, that's something I'm sure we'll try at some stage during the season, or you could move him to inside. So there's options there because he's so versatile. But I wouldn't want to take the ball out of Lindsay's hands. I'd probably want, if you could roll.
No, Lindsay stays. Lindsay stays.
Well, no, but in terms of giving him the main role, because if Desmond goes back there, it's just you're sharing it between the two. But I'd be trying to roll. I
see what you mean. Yeah.
Even less, ball out of Duggan's hands even more, ball in Lindsay's hands as much as you can. But I like the idea of running Duggan, as a run with player or something, finding a spot for him where he can really have a positive influence on the game. But maybe, the Tigers maybe don't necessarily have that player that we would use him for in that role. But, I could see us making a fair few changes. But I think you've articulated it well about where we're at. And there it feels like we need to flip a switch here. We saw it early in the year and we've regressed, and we can't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just worry about the resolve now. And I thought the Sydney loss would be an aberration, and now I don't. I think we can beat Richmond this week, and I hope we do. But then I worry about how we'll go the week after that, and whether these big losses are going to come again. So we shouldn't have that concern right now. We can cop the losses. If we win 5-6 games for the season, I think Eagles fans would be okay with that. But it's the 100-pointers that we just can't stomach anymore. And I'm a little bit fearful about the Tigers game, Drewy, because last season we billed it as our grand final at home to them, and they smashed us in the second half. God forbid if that happens again. And I've already seen the Tigers posting a fair bit saying, this is our grand final. This is our chance to win a game. We don't win this one, what happens? They're going to be ready for this in a big way.
Yeah, they'll be red hot for sure. I've already sort of cast my mind ahead to a few weeks' time where we're probably going to get Scott Pendlebury's record breaker. And it's the twilight game at the MCG, so it's a standalone fixture. I don't want to be embarrassed on that stage. I want us to come and I want people with, there's going to be a lot of eyes on that game. I really want us to work towards over the next few weeks, making sure that we turn up and give a really good account of ourselves against Collingwood in what's going to be, 95,000 plus at the MCG, a really big day. So I'm sort of looking at these next few weeks as a really good test and a big test for Mini and for everyone to get the train back on the tracks.
Get angry. That's what I ask. Just get angry, become unsociable with each other, not against the opposition, actually with each other. Like the Waffle Boys should be rocking up at training with their chest out, ready to take the spot, and the other guys should be on notice, and they should be at each other every single week to turn around this culture. And that's what needs doing. I think they've been too nice for too long, and the coach needs to get in on it as well. That's what we demand. It's been a really, really difficult few days for Eagles fans, that's for sure. I think that might do us for this week, Drewy. I think we got it all off our chest.
I think so. Yeah, I feel a little better. There's a call to arms. We got to see more. We need to see more.
Yeah. Fire the fuck up.
Oh,
that's what we'd like to see every single week.
All right, mate. It's been good. We'll chat again soon, hopefully after a win next week.
Hopefully. Can't wait for Saturday. Thanks, Drewy. Cheers, Nesters.